I'm not really a fan of end-of-the-year recap lists. Like, if I've already talked about something once, I don't like to do it again unless there's something new to say about it, but I realize a lot of people like lists, so here are my top 5 favorite and least favorite movies of 2019 that I already reviewed. Go and check out those videos if you missed them, I'll leave links in the description. But now I want to talk about some other stuff I watched this year that I haven't already discussed on the channel, and I'll put time codes for these down in the pinned comment. I went into this one expecting to like it. I enjoy Elton John's music a lot, and I've got a ton of respect for the guy and his place in the history of the music industry. I kind of figured this film would be at about the same level as 2018's Bohemian Rhapsody, which I enjoyed, especially since it was directed by Dexter Fletcher, who stepped in to finish Bohemian Rhapsody after Bryan Singer was fired for being Bryan Singer. But I was blown away by how much more Rocket Man gave us. It doesn't really pull any punches with Elton's tumultuous life, and it incorporates the songs much more organically by structuring the whole film as an old school musical where rather than just play the songs over top of the other scenes, they're done as these big song and dance numbers with tons of extras, impressive choreography, cinematography. It's just a great time. I'd say definitely give it a watch if you missed it in theaters. In a similar vein, we've also got Yesterday, the latest Danny Boyle film tributing the Beatles. However, unlike most other movies like this, which celebrate the career of a band or performer in a form of a biopic, Yesterday takes a different tack, instead fitting it into a sort of sci-fi comedy, wherein the main character, a struggling musician, wakes up one day after a severe car accident to find that he's the only person left in the world who has any memory of the Beatles, and begins building up his own career by essentially plagiarizing all of the Beatles' greatest hits and passing them off as his own. I don't want to give too much else away, but I will say that this is an incredibly funny and heartfelt film, and since it has almost nothing to do with the actual band, even if you aren't the biggest Beatles fan, I'd say you can still get a lot out of it. Highly recommended. Parasite is a damn good movie from South Korean writer-director Bong Joon-ho, best known in the West for his 2013 film Snowpiercer. This film is a sort of dark comedy, which I wasn't expecting at all. From the trailers you'd think it was more of like a thriller, which it is, but the film is also extremely funny if you've got the right sense of humor for it. This is another one where I don't want to give away too much of the plot, since a lot of it's very spoilery, but a quick TLDR would be that it's about this impoverished family who attempts to scam a much richer family. Parasite explores themes of social and wealth inequality, but does so without ever feeling overly preachy or pretentious. It's an enormously entertaining thrill ride of a movie that you should definitely get out there to see. I'll be pretty shocked if this doesn't at least pick up a nomination for Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars in a couple months. I hated this movie a lot more than it probably deserved. I've seen pretty much everything that was bad about it done a lot worse in other movies. The problem is that just nothing is good. I would be shocked to learn that a single person involved with this production gave a shit whether or not the movie they were making was going to be any good at all. The animation is so unappealing and the characters are hideous. And I don't mean hideous on purpose because they're the Addams Family. They do more or less resemble the characters from the original comic strip. The character models are just really badly animated. Some of the worst looking ones are the normal people who interact with the Addams Family throughout the film. Apart from that, the movie is just bad. I didn't laugh at a single joke, and neither did most of the kids in the theater. There are so many obnoxious, non sequitur pop culture references. For about the first half of the movie, I was trying to keep count of them all, but I lost track somewhere in the 20s and just gave up.
You sunk my battleship!
Just to give an example, the opening scene of the film is Gomez and Morticia's wedding ceremony, and we learn that an Addams Family wedding tradition is to put the lime in the coconut and drink them both together. Get it? Because it's like, you know, those are the words in the song. You know, that song you've heard? Yeah, that's the whole joke. Lurch is constantly playing terrible pop music on the organ. Cousin It is played by Snoop Dogg, and when he first shows up, Drop It Like It's Hot starts playing because he's voiced by Snoop Dogg, and you get it. Aside from that though, the rest of the cast is also pretty bad because none of them are voice actors. In particular, Uncle Fester was just unimaginably annoying. But I think the worst part is that the people making this movie don't even seem to understand the characters. There are multiple points during the film where members of the Addams Family are afraid of dying. Like, we literally see them flee for their lives, which is just so out of character. It took me right out of the movie. Like, the Addams Family's whole thing is that they're these macabre fucking weirdos who aren't afraid of anything and, like, love and worship death. How can you fuck that one thing up? That's the entire joke. How do you mess up the one joke? To sum up, the movie sucks, don't watch it. Now let's talk some TV. For those who aren't familiar with Barry, it stars Bill Hader as Barry, a professional hitman who's just completely bored with his job. He treats being a hitman similarly to how a normal person might treat a corporate office job. He does it because he's good at it and needs the money, but his heart just isn't in it anymore, and while undercover on a job, he discovers that his true passion is for acting. The series details Barry's journey trying to disentangle himself from his criminal associates as he transitions from a guy who kills people to an actor. The show is a ridiculously funny, dark comedy and features a great supporting cast, including the Fonz as Barry's has-been amateur theater acting coach, and Milton from Office Space as his sort of hitman agent slash father figure. Barry is a show that began in 2018, but I think it's really hit its stride here in the second season. These seasons are short, at only 8 episodes long, and each episode is only about 30 minutes apiece, so it wouldn't take long to catch up. Season 2, episode 5 might be one of the funniest episodes of television I've ever seen. Next up is The Boys Season 1 on Amazon Prime. This is the perfect show for anyone who's completely sick of superheroes and wants to see them brought down a peg. The premise is that superhumans have become commonplace in society over the past couple of decades, except because this is a more realistic type of world, they're portrayed more like true-to-life celebrities and athletes who have all of this love and adoration from the public showered on them, but who behind closed doors are often messed up, vain, sometimes even terrible people who are more or less at the whim of the giant megacorporation who owns their brand image and pushes their marketing, doles out sponsorships to them, etc. The protagonists of the show are instead a group of seedy individuals called the Boys, led by Carl Urban, as they try to expose the caped heroes to the public for who they really are. The show doesn't really have good guys and bad guys in the traditional sense. Sure, there are those who lean more towards good and those who lean more towards bad, but generally speaking, every character exists within shades of gray. It's a much more refreshing and honest examination of what a world with superhumans in it might look like. Speaking of Amazon, this year they also picked up The Expanse for its 4th season after it had previously been cancelled by the Sci-Fi Network, and I'm really glad it was picked up, because this is one of my favorite sci-fi series airing today. Based on the book series of the same name, this show sets up its world as one of the most grounded and realistic takes on what space travel might actually look like in the next couple hundred years, then mixes in some really far out there sci-fi concepts and tense political drama. The universe of The Expanse honestly reminds me a lot of Gundam, only without the Gundams, if you know what I mean. We follow the small crew of former ice haulers who get caught up in the various conspiracies and political machinations of the two major superpowers, the governments of Earth and Mars, as well as a terrorist organization made up of people living on space colonies in the asteroid belt. The characters are complex, both the plot and the scientific elements are all written intelligently. The show might take a few episodes to get into, but by the end of the first season I was completely hooked, and I'm so glad that it's being continued on Amazon. I guess it pays, literally, when one of the richest men in the world is a fan of your show. My favorite currently running sci-fi show, however, has got to go to The Orville. Much like Barry, while The Orville did start out well out the gate with a strong first season, check out my review up here, the second season is where the show really hits its stride, and I can now firmly say that The Orville is easily my favorite Star Trek property since TNG ended back in '94, despite not actually being Star Trek. The show pulls off an impressive balancing act, managing to be both a spoof and successor of one of the most famous science fiction franchises ever. Even in Season 2, I'll admit some of the jokes, especially in the first couple of episodes, can fall a bit flat, but honestly it seems at this point like they're only really there so that it can continue to get away with calling itself a parody. The show's real strength is in its Star Trekian political quagmires and sci-fi concepts. This season, however, also manages to get some fantastic mileage out of developing its cast of characters, something which was notably a bit of a weak point in classic Star Trek. And unfortunately, talking about The Orville means I also have to talk about its sort of sister series, Star Trek Discovery. Now, I was a lot kinder to STD than most Trek fans back when I reviewed the first season in 2018. I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt that after a rocky first season, it could get a lot better from there. I was wrong. This show is bad. It feels like it was written by people who don't understand Star Trek. Or anything. The story is lame and uninteresting and feels like something out of like a middling comic book movie. The science fiction elements are dumb, underexplained, and honestly feel more like they belong in a middling comic book movie. Michael Burnham is still a complete wet blanket who does nothing for me as a protagonist, and I really just wish this was an ensemble cast as on the previous Trek series and the Orville. Because they don't have any time to be developed, the rest of the cast are still pretty interchangeable, aside from Saru, who the show really wants you to like, and I still like him more than the rest of the cast, but it's not enough to save the show. If this is the kind of quality we can expect to see from CBS Star Trek, I'm completely dreading the Picard show coming out in a couple of weeks. And that about does it for my 2019 recap. There's obviously a bunch of other movies and TV shows that came out which I either haven't seen yet or that I don't have much to say about. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought about any of this stuff, or what some of your favorites were that I didn't get to. So until next time, help me out by hitting the like button, subscribing, and ringing the bell. Check out some of the other great stuff up here on my channel, and as always, thanks so much to all of you guys for watching, and take care.